Hello, my darlings, and welcome to a new episode of After Dark Fairy Tales. I have a new story for you guys, and the title of this story is called Memoirs of the Burning House of Memories. This story was written by a very talented author, and she goes by the name Clover Assassin 13. Her story was first published on Reddit, and I put the link to the Reddit page in the description box below, so please check it out. And I'm going to narrate the story to you guys, and I hope you enjoy it just as much as I did. I have to warn you, it is a little tragic. It made me a little sad, but you guys let me know what you think about it in the comments. To all my new subscribers, I'd like to say welcome to After Dark Fairy Tales, and I hope you guys are enjoying the content. I try to bring the talent of these authors and their stories to life with my narration, and I know my narration isn't perfect, but I just try to make it entertaining and enjoyable to listen to. So I'm glad you guys are enjoying it, and thank you for all the likes and the comments as well. So you guys ready to find out what Memoirs of the Burning House of Memories is about? Well, here we go. Memoirs of the Burning House of Memories by Clover Assassin 13. Hello all, my name is Charlie McGregor, but I'm better known as Chance, and for good reason. My story is a strange one, alas, no stranger than anyone else's on here. I chose this place to tell my tale, but I didn't choose what happened to me. However, I did make choices afterwards that were life and death for everyone involved but me. A feverish somnium of nightmares used to plague my every breath and heartbeat, still every toss and turn and gallon of cold sweat that drowned my will to exist, causing hysteria in my own mind, like I was fighting a war with myself and I was losing. In our dreams, we are all alone, no guiding light or advice or support. Because we have stepped behind the veil, REM sleep is when we do this. Rapid eye movement, they call it. But my REM sleep was different for 2 nights out of the year. In these 2 nights, I could do more than just step behind the veil. It was something godlike. The most important part of this is I was immortal when I crossed the veil, or the alternate reality. As I crossed that veil, nothing could hurt me in the real world because I was dreaming. Even in all this immunity, I was still petrified of the flames of that house. I detest my selfishness for all these years. I should have tried harder to find a way to set them free, but I ran out of answers and came to dead ends, and I felt like I was kicking a dead horse. But now my breaths grow shallow, like they should have in that burning house all those times. All those years ago, even in my darkest hour, when I wished for death before it would come, it fled from me still. Yet, I sought out those I couldn't save. But now that I don't just want to unburden my heart, only that I think enough time has passed that someone should hear the truth about that house. You need to hear what really happened and why, so that the memorial of the burning house of memories doesn't start happening once more. I say this with a warning that is grave, as I have started to have the nightmares plague me once more. If and when a new house is built and stood, and I fear that it would stand again on the memorial ground, it will burn again, trapping those within it along with their souls. Disrespected, powerful, and now seemingly unhinged, lost souls of the Monroe family sought retribution. Reich is the German word for revenge, as both sets of their grandparents were Holocaust survivors, and going through something like that with someone makes a bond strong, stronger than death in this case. That is the reason I think the timeline's fractured. In this case, as in every case, I do believe that the universe can only stand so much injustice before it corrects itself any way it can, to even the score, so to speak. Karma, some call it. Somehow, a fracture occurred in the two realities, which had the worlds mirroring each other to the T. Such a phenomenon as this fracture in the two timelines could only be derived from such anger. To be able to bleed through was enough to burn a house down from the other side. The realtor that desecrated their memorial was a proud German and their landlord, as he was also mine. The Monroes were my neighbors for 15 years, as they were still a young couple, just getting into their late 30s after finally being able to conceive and have 2 children, which they loved so very much. They waited a very long time for those children, and they were so happy, which makes the next part of the story even harder to tell. My wife's love for me and the Monroes' hatred and loss fractured or altered the timeline. They clashed together so I could step behind the veil during alternate reality, but to go forward in time, and when I woke up, I had actually gone into the future of the next night at midnight. The house was already engulfed in flames at this point. As they would burn it down every time without fail, the lost souls of the innocent took on a much darker feel. Hard to understand, I know. The first time it happened, I had headaches for days, just trying to wrap my mind around it, while at the same time trying to figure out what the fuck just happened. To the people of the burning house of memories before they die the next night, you're asking me, what the hell am I talking about? I really lost it, and I might have needed a therapist. I lived with the consequences of them daily for the last 35 years. It was 1985, and the Monroes had just had their second child. The people started calling the house cursed years later, but I disagree. I was the one who was cursed. My conscience is polymerous when it comes to the scale of honor and cowardice. It's unacceptable, and I'm ashamed of it. Hopefully, I can unburden my soul enough to forgive myself for this fact. Then maybe, just maybe, their souls can rest too. My tale is one of great loss, and not for the faint of heart. I find the strangest part is I didn't even know the people I lost, but nevertheless, it destroyed me a little more each and every time that I failed them. Every time I couldn't save them, they took pieces of my soul with them as they burned alive, leaving me more and more empty, which made it easier for the pain to find a way in and make a home. For years, the people I failed have haunted my conscience, the inescapable guilt running deep in me, adjacent to the responsibility I felt to save them. But I can't let the guilt follow me to my grave, even though it's all over now, and I can finally sleep at night, only I haven't been sleeping so well lately. The nightmares plague my slumber yet again, and they are still as real as ever. I can still smell the smoke, feel the heat of the fire as the flames lick my skin, and the heat of the deadliest element on earth dry out my flesh till it cracks and bleeds. Fire is nothing to mess around with, ever. Whenever you go into a burning house, there's actually no breathable air. The flames get so high so damn quickly due to this fact. They eat everything, including all of the oxygen. That's what gives everything life in the end, I guess, even if it is taking it at the same time. I learned very quickly in life that anything and everything you see in TV or in the movies is complete bullcrap. When they run into the house again and again with no thought for their own mortality, it's just not realistic. I know this because that was me. Stupid, I know. No matter how noble, this happens more often than you might think. Love makes us do crazy things is the saying, I think, and this has never been more true when a fire is engulfing everything they've ever known or cared about. So more often than not, they try to be a hero, which is an act of valor in itself. The bravery and balls it takes to do such a thing is unmatched and unrivaled except by selflessness. No more will their beloved set eyes upon their smiling faces, more like their charred remains. Adrenaline and instinct make the mortality of it all insignificant and unworthy of a second thought, instead of heeded. You are going in blind, unless you're Superman, cutting your way through that black smoke, all the while forcing your lungs to filter smoke and toxic fumes. Now whether they chose to cover your face and attempt to breathe through your shirt or a bandana, you will most likely suffocate before you reach their target and back out again. This is the truth we must all come to accept, but that just wasn't in the cards for me. I would go to sleep the eve of the anniversaries, and I dreamed of the house of memories burning down, and every time I had a chance to save them, then I would wake up unharmed, and I would be reeking of smoke, and they would all be dead. I tried to believe I was going crazy. That would have been better or easier, but I just went out and bought new shells for my grandfather's shotgun, and I had all but given up hope. It happened, and it made me realize I could change it, not in real life it seemed, but in the alternate reality on those 2 nights. I could save them. The first time I would find this to be utterly convincing beyond reason was when my dream world started to bleed over into reality with no other explanation other than the outcome of my dream. Now, having eased you into this dreadful tale, I think you're ready for the how. This nightmare all started, but be forewarned, I try not to think about it, ever. It truly was sad, so quick and final. This is my first-hand account. I told the police the same story, and I'll never forget. Me and my beautiful wife, who had just beaten breast cancer, was finally home, just in time for Christmas. She was standing there with them, with the Monroe family. That earth-shattering crunch and shrill screams of them, all when their lives were cut short, as they were run down by the German landlord's son, who was all liquored up again, and his heavier-than-life Chevy pickup truck. I remember when I came out on my porch at 3:30 and how the snow glistened like diamonds on that sunny day. Now the Monroes and their 3-year-old daughter Sally and 9-month-old son Toby were going for a walk with Mommy and Daddy. It was the first time Toby had seen snow, and Sally wanted to take her new puppy for a walk, since she couldn't open her presents yet. After we spoke, they took Toby for his first look at snow. He gripped it in his tiny hand and smiled a soft, happy, and very intelligent smile. The puppy broke loose from Sally's grip, and my wife, having gone to check our mail at the curb for fresh air and exercise doing her good, my poor unknowing wife snatched the leash up as the puppy ran by her. She then proceeded to walk the puppy back to Sally and steal another look at what she could never have, cancer robbing her of more than just her hair. She pinched the baby's cheek again and turned to come back, rubbing her hands together and blowing on them, trying to keep her hands warm. She took 2 steps, and then it happened. I still haven't forgotten the way the tires screeched on the slick street, melted with the sun, and during 35 minutes that we all talked, it had frozen back over again, helpless as this horror show unfolded in slow motion in front of my very eyes. Still tears my heart. I cried out in the loudest I've ever been or ever will be again. "Look out!" And it was over. They were gone, just like that. Like the devil snapped his fingers and took their smiles from this world and took mine forever as a parting gift. I couldn't fathom the scene that laid years old beyond the truck on its side. My wife looking up too late, the Monroes bracing for impact, their last moments. I locked eyes with that little girl Sally, She was in shock. Her eyes were wide, and at that last 3 seconds, our eyes met, and then the truck wiped them from my life in one full swoop. I felt as if though I had been hit by that truck. As my legs collapsed and I grappled the railing of my porch like a paralyzed person who was learning to walk again, the truck slid sideways on the slick road and then started to roll. The fear in their eyes as they shielded their children like a suit of armor when the truck met them in an earth-shattering crunching of metal. My wife, my dear friends, crushed. The new little family was crushed to death on impact. That Chevy truck had rolled over on them and off again, but the damage was done. It finally rested in the snowy embankment, steaming and clinking with hot metal cooling in the snow. It laid exactly in the spot where the burning house of memories would be built in the dreadful coming years. The love of my wife, my beautiful wife, and our poor neighbors were unrecognizable. I threw up and choked as I opened up my eyes. My gaze fell upon little baby Toby first, his little body still and lifeless. He was not much to look at, with his little blanket still clenched tightly in his mother's arms, forevermore. Then I looked for signs of life in Sally, and wished I hadn't. She was a sad, sweet little thing, forever young, a permanent snow angel. The poor little thing didn't have a chance. I was afraid to let my eyes wander to my wife, gasping for breath. I was paralyzed by fear. I felt like a true coward. I was so afraid of death that I couldn't even manage 5 more steps towards her. She didn't even know I was there, staring at the sky, tears pulling her eyes as her face held an expression reflecting her torture. She parted her crimson-stained lips and teeth and hissed my name, her breath freezing in the air. She broke in the snow, and all I could do was watch as she coughed and sent blood skyward. She didn't quiver violently. She just gurgled out my name instead of speaking it. And at that very last moments of her life, she turned her head, looked at me, and smiled. I was suddenly aware that I could move again, and also suddenly aware that everything else had gone very, very still. I sank to my knees and crawled to her like the coward I was. When I reached her, I cradled her in my arms. I buried my face in her sweater, only realizing then that her sweet scent was a mix of coppery blood and black oil, and I flung myself from her side to retch in the snow, shamefully. Then on the ground, I noticed things I wish I hadn't been close enough to see, things I wish the shock and trauma had made me forget. When a truck had rolled on them and off again, it had left a path in the snow. Spiders of blood, pieces of flesh, hair, oil, and gasoline with bits of torn clothing. I reached over to pick up my wife's necklace, and I just put it, given her for Christmas, and put it in my pocket. The sun was almost set now, and the last light peeked behind the trees to glance off a little baby rattle that read Toby. I sat there frozen in the snow. I don't remember getting up, and my self-preservation switch kicked on at this point, I think. From somewhere deep inside, I knew there was nothing that could be done to save her, to save any of them. As I watched it all rewind and then go forward again in my head, I saw her quiver and take her last breath, not looking anymore. Screams, tires screeched, the sound of crunching bones and metal against soft flesh and blood being obliterated at a high rate of speed. The impact as it collided and it was over just that fast. There was nothing I could have done other than scream sooner. I wish I would have. I would later find out that her cause of death was drowning. After their deaths, the people of the town built a memorial in their honor with wooden crosses, teddy bears, and candles, and newly taken pictures from their Christmas cards. Somebody even dug a spot and buried the puppy right there on the memorial. I waited till most had gone and put my own cross on the spot. It was beautifully carved with swirls of navy and sky blue that reflected its color in the snow like a mirror. It was 3 feet tall, with her name in gold letters. I was the only keeper of her heart. She was an only child, and her parents had died when she was 3. Relatives raised her, and she left them when she turned 18. We met shortly after, and we were inseparable ever since. But now I was left behind. She took all the meaning of life with her. More alone than I ever felt in this world, I cried, great big heaving sobs, and I asked her, why? Why you? The wind picked up as I got no answer from her small wooden cross. I looked back at her, and before more words could form on my lips, the wind turned to gusts and nearly knocked me down. I steadied myself against it and braced my feet for a new onslaught of invisible danger. None came. I went back inside and could see the memorial from my kitchen window. It made me happy and sad at the same time, and only matched my disgust and hatred. I went to bed after a full and frivolous day. I thought about the accident and finally fell to sleep as tears I had been holding back formed in the corners of my eyes. I did this every day until the day the landlord sold the property. He sold it. He sold their memorial grounds. The first dream I had started out as a house I had never seen before, and it was burning. It was on our street. I could smell the smoke. It burned my nostrils, but it didn't make me cough or choke. I knew at this point I was dreaming, of course. I knew without knowing it, and I would say I was dream clairvoyant, if you will, because I was there for a reason of which I knew nothing about, but knew everything about. As I ran into the house, I could breathe just fine. I looked around for anyone and saw 3 children on the floor. They didn't make it out in time, and it collapsed from smoke inhalation. I went to grab one hand and threw the child over my shoulder, and then took the hand of either of the other 2 and commenced on dragging them to the door just feet away. Then the house gave a deep groan. Snap, snap, crack. And then the front part of the second story collapsed onto me and the children, who were now running out of time. As the heat of the fire burned my skin and boiled my blood, the remaining heavy boards above me gave way under their own weight, giving another arduous groan, and with a sudden whoosh, it fell too. It fell faster than lightning, leaving me no time to react, essentially pinning my body to the floor and the rest of the already burnt and fallen house. I could smell my hair burning, and embers had made their way down into my ear canals and burned my eardrums till all I heard was sizzling and then ringing, then nothing. I knew we were doomed. The oxygen was robbed from my lungs like a thief in the night. I wasn't able to breathe smoke anymore. I could not breathe anything. I gasped, and then the support beam for the house started to give and made a high-pitched "eeeh," and then crescendoed into a terrifying cracking, crunching noise. This being was larger than life, ablaze with hellfire. It seemed to aim for us like it was intentionally trying to thwart any heroic plans I was predisposed to. The house was aiming for me. I swear it. I dragged the children underneath me as best I could, not that it would have mattered. I had to do something as they lay helpless and dying. I held them close and told them it was going to be okay. Again, not that it mattered. They couldn't hear me. Just hang on to the sound of my voice was the last words they heard when it hit me. I was ready and not so sure if I was dreaming anymore. As the roof gave way, fireflies like golden and orange embers flew from either end of the breaking points, so beautiful and ugly at the same time. Then it hit me, killing me and the small children. Had this not been a dream? So instead of dying, my vision went black, and I heard my wife's soft laughter in the distance. My soul reached for it in the dark. I felt her soft lips kiss my cheek, and it woke me, only to realize that there was a tear that had landed on my cheek instead. This continued on in my dreams every anniversary of the desecration of the Monroe Memorial Site, and on Christmas Eve, when they tragically lost their lives. But the house would burn regardless, always at the stroke of midnight. The next would be dramatically different, though. I saved a little girl this time. As I woke, I heard sirens from fire trucks and shouting firemen and their screams. Screams of horror from the neighbors. The house, which was in fact consumed with fire, but it was different this time. I looked around on a hunch, my eyes darting from firefighter to cop, only to find what I was looking for. Huddled up was a 3-year-old little girl, wrapped in a fire-retardant blanket, sitting on the back of an ambulance. She was crying, with an oxygen mask on. So in turn, I was right about 3 things. 1, today was in fact the day the house would burn. 2, that I could in fact save them in my dreams, and it would then come true in real time. 3, and that I must stop another house from being built here, no matter the cost. I have discovered in all this loss of life that life is indeed so precious and priceless. After the house had burned, they found the little girl unscathed and unharmed, except for the soot of black marks on her cheeks. Now, tear-streaked and stinking of smoke, she was practically unharmed, unless you include emotional trauma. The girl was practically catatonic upon finding out that she was the only survivor. Her happy, loving family of 6 was gone forever, and she alone remained. The rest of the family had burned alive, and they would never see this Christmas Day, nor any other. I couldn't save them. They would never get to see her grow up, or go to college, get married, or meet their grandchildren, all because I couldn't save them, the parents. They died needlessly because of me. I often wondered at the time if it would have been merciful to let her die with them, but I always answer myself the same way. I was able to save her because I was meant to. You know that old saying, everything happens for a reason. I used to think it was bullshit. Reason being, I lost my wife of 32 years to breast cancer even after a full mastectomy. It ravaged her until she died anyway, leaving me all alone in this house, with nothing but her sweet-smelling perfume to break my heart. Every time I go in our room, with empty sheets that were as empty as my heart, what was the reason for that? Well, I don't think like that anymore, not after saving that little girl's life. The burning house of memories was doing so without ever really risking my life. I was able to breathe in that smoke as if it wasn't even there, and knew exactly where to find her when I heard the dog bark. Huddled in the corner of the room under a table with a blanket wrapped tightly around them both, completely covering them from the flames that licked at the corners of the couch 5 feet from the fire, and right next to her and her loyal but useless guardian. Her grip on that dog could not have been broken by the devil himself. I walked up to her, closer and closer, quickly. She was sobbing, and the sight of her, the sound of it, hopeless and lost, crying for her mommy and daddy, all alone and knowing on one level, I think, that the fire would consume her tiny little body. Her little voice grew shrill and more desperate with every passing second. Tears streamed down her soft little cheeks and evaporated before they reached her chin. Still calling to her parents and siblings, she screamed as loud as her voice box allowed, as she screamed for them, but they would never come again. She didn't know that, poor thing, just trying to escape, and being small, despite her efforts. She was too tiny to reach the door lock, smart enough to get out when she couldn't wake her family, but by some sick twist of fate, just too small to open the door. In my dreams, the fireman had said one more thing that echoed me back into reality again, as these same words were now being spoken in reality. They were probably dead before the flames touched them, the firefighter said to the other. Then what's her story? You and I both know there's no way she got out of the house by herself, and we know the dog sure as fuck didn't open the damn door. For fuck's sakes, it was locked. The fireman looked back at his partner. He scrunched up his face before letting out a hearty chuckle. He answered his partner while staring ahead in disbelief at the little girl, who was now being rushed to the hospital for smoke inhalation. It was a Christmas miracle. Divine intervention? The firefighter said to his partner, ironically lighting up a cigarette and walking to the other side of the truck. Yeah, it's divine intervention, all right, he said. I could see the firefighter trying not to throw up as he stared at the 5 waterlogged and burnt bodies with white sheets covering them. He looked back at them as he climbed into the fire truck and shut the door. I saw big black and red stains beginning to bleed through the bodies. I watched as the firefighter looked at the bodies harder, but a car drove into his line of sight, and when he looked again, the stains were gone. After I got back home, I fell into my chair in a heap, but I didn't feel like I was usually sad. I didn't feel so desolate. I lost, and I didn't feel hopeless. In fact, I felt quite the opposite. For the first time in such a terrible long while, I felt relief for the years of torment. You don't know the struggle that I fought within myself. As the inescapable feeling of helplessness, of impending doom, crippling my daily lifestyle, I knew I was small and that nothing I said or did while I was awake mattered. Everything in the continuous world was in vain and all for naught. Pouring your coffee seems mundane. Eating your favorite food that was long lost its flavor, still feeling dirty when you get out of the shower. How I wish you could wash your thoughts. I could feel worry ebb as my helplessness eased for the first time in a long time. I felt like I could breathe again. The food tasted better, and the TV was funny for the first time. I don't know when. I felt myself letting go a little. I needed to. I don't know why this was happening to me, or how, or when it would stop, if ever. But the one thing I did know was that I had a purpose, and finally being able to fulfill it, even to the smallest degree, made everything okay again, if only for a little while. I felt like I had done something right, and all these years I have tried but failed, and yet there was still a problem that was truly unsettling. And when I was right back to where I was before, but not quite, for I knew I could alter the future, so things had changed somehow, even though I could see them besides the obvious life I saved. But things were altered in my favor. I picked up my phone and called the police station to check on the little girl I had saved, even if nobody knew I had. The little girl was safe and sound, with loving arms to comfort her. Anywhere was better than in that house. She was now with relatives that would love and care for her, even though I would never see her again. I asked them what was going to happen to her, and they wouldn't give me any more information. I hung up the phone and went to look out my front window. The house still smoldered from the monster that was the vengeful fire. As it continued to persecute and steal happiness from this world, again and again, I played the events of the night and of the past over in my head. How in the fuck was I ever going to put this nightmare to bed? Could I possibly prevent any new building completely? Was that a reasonable expectation, or was I just chasing dreams? Would I fail at that too? Just like I failed 2 families so far? Still the question begged, echoing in my mind and making me feel more hollow. I wished I could escape. The uncertainty was enough to drive a person mad. I could feel it cut through me as the fear made me want to hide somewhere safe from that fire, forever. There was more to come. It wasn't over, not by a long shot. Why and how had I been tied to the fractured timelines? Why did I dream about it on the eve of the anniversaries, enabling me to step across the veil into the future of both realities? And as time was fleeting, I was miraculously allowed time enough to save them, if I succeeded at all. Well, I used to call this rewriting a wrong before it was written down wrong. In short, the answer to all of this is my wife. My wife ties me to the house of burning memories, to both anniversaries and to the memorial grounds. That's how. And as long as a house still stands on those grounds, on the memorial, more souls will continue to be trapped, feeding the fires, helping them grow. Yet, the biggest problem, besides saving souls, or trying to convince them I was crazy, or trying to forget the putrid smell of burnt flesh and hair, was that I did not know when it was going to happen, only that it would. Perhaps then the day my world stopped making sense and having any meaning at all. All seemed like ages ago now, but remembering is like tearing open an old wound that never really healed properly. Tears stung my eyes as still images of her smile flash in the white-hot anger that I still feel when I think about that self-entitled rich punk falling asleep at the wheel and crashing right into my heart the day before Christmas. So, did you guys enjoy that one? I thought it was pretty good. I just thought it was so tragic. It's a good story, but it's like nothing like a long, tragic story. I was like, oh God. But you guys let me know what you thought about it. I hope you guys enjoyed my narration. And I tried to bring it to life. So I tried to embody Charlie, the character, and saw myself as Charlie telling you this tragic thing that just happened to me. So you guys let me know what you thought about it. And I want to give all credit to the author, Clover. I posted a link to her story so you guys can check it out on Reddit where it was posted. And like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed that one. I liked it, so I wanted to put it out there, and she wanted me to narrate it for her. So you guys let me know what you thought about it. And please check out Clover Assassin's Reddit page as well. So I'll be back next time with another After Dark fairy tales for you guys. And I'm glad you guys are enjoying the stories. And I hope you guys enjoyed this one. And you guys let me know. And once again, to all my new subscribers, welcome. And I try to bring more and more content for you guys, every week. I think I said this in the other video, I'm not sure, but I kind of see myself as maybe like Rod Serling or Jordan Peele, whichever Twilight Zone host, and that these stories that I'm presenting are Twilight Zone episodes that are created by very talented writers. So, hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll be back next time with another tale. And until then, good night, my darlings.